Slideshow time. All right, so officially welcome to our first Tableau user group of 2023. If you guys don't know who I am, I'm Serena Roberts, and I am one of, I think there are 6 of us who help organize this meeting every single month, with the exception of November. We skip that for Thanksgiving and just to help avoid the holidays. Otherwise, we meet every month. Prior to COVID, we did not do virtual or hybrid or anything like that. But like everyone else, we had to shift and pivot and morph into something different. So while we still conduct most of our meetings in person, mostly due to the weather, we're going to be virtual this month, February, and probably March as well, unless like the spring gods bless us and we can get back to in person. Otherwise, count on April, and until it gets cold again, we'll be in person. I have all of the dates and everything set for the whole year for the Twin Cities Tableau user group, and our agenda for today is obviously set, and then our agenda for February is already set. But March and after that, we are looking for people who would like to present, and the more we can pull from this community rather than the organizing committee or just people that are really kind of in that circuit of doing presentations, the better. So if you have never presented at a TUG before, I highly encourage you to at least consider it. Have a conversation with me about what that might look or feel like, just the expectations of it. It's a super low bar. It's a very informal group. You don't have to have everything all polished. Lord knows that I don't when I come show up here every month. Just kind of wing it. We have fun and we make it work. So if you are interested in talking about that, let me know, or contact any of the other TUG organizers. We are also looking for in-person locations. So if your organization has a spot that could hold, let's say 40, 50 people pretty comfortably, we would love to hear from you and get you on our calendar for 2023. All right, today, our agenda, we're gonna do a couple get to know members, and if you're new to that, that's where we pick someone from the audience, or you can volunteer, but if no one volunteers, I will pick someone, and you'll just answer a handful of questions about yourself, or you can totally go off script and just tell us what you want us to know about you. But obviously the whole reason why we do this is to foster a sense of community, and we can't really do that if we don't feel like we know each other. So that's get to know a member. And then for the first time ever in the history of ever, or at least until we started doing this in 2016, my business partner, Laura Madsen, my ride or die at Moxie Analytics, is going to present content to you. So we normally try to keep very separate worlds like that. But today she's gonna, she wrote an ebook about proving the value of your analytics teams. And I just think that's something that we could all really benefit from. So I invited her, shall I say, begged her to present today. And I knew that if she didn't have to be in person, that it was going to be an easier sell. So, and then from there, we've got Luke Komiskey, who is one of the organizers of this crew from Data Drive. And he is, so I created this title, Table Calcs and Tableau. I know it's super boring and dumb, but I did ask Luke for a cool title and he did not provide. So this is what you guys get. It might not do the presentation justice, but at a baseline, at least you know what you're going to expect. It's going to cover.
I think it's fantastic, Serena. Thank you.
Thanks. Table Calcs in Tableau. And then obviously, if we have time, we do try to keep our virtual meetings shorter because, everyone's tolerance for virtual meetings is generally lower than in person, at least the duration. If we have time, we'll do best thing I learned, or what we call group therapy. And that's where if you learned something cool, it could be the teeny tiniest, I learned if you right click, you can do this, or, whatever it might be. You can just unmute yourself and share it with the group. Otherwise, if you have been banging your head against trying to get some calculation to work, you're getting that weird error that, you can't mix aggregate, not aggregate, functions, blah, blah, blah. Any like weird little things like that you guys are struggling to solve, you can position that issue to the group, and collectively we can try to help solve that for you, or at least provide solutions for you to try. And then this will be in spirit, guys. We don't have to all sit together and have a drink, but when we are done here today, please feel free to reward yourself for completing yet another Thursday in your life with a cold or hot glass of whatever it is that you feel like drinking, and cheers to this group. All right. So let's get into, oh, you know what? I always forget about this slide. So upcoming events. These are just the 3 that I had on the top of my head. Obviously, this is not holistic. And if you guys want to promote an event that you know of, that is absolutely more than welcome. But on February 7th, we have our She Talks Data event with Katrina Johnson, who is another organizer of the Twin Cities Tableau user group. FYI, there is a wait list for that She Talks Data event right now, but it's not a super long wait list. So if you do want to get on it, you can do that on Meetup. Just type in She Talks Data, you'll find it. And there's a fairly decent chance you could sneak into a spot with some people canceling at the last minute. February 23rd is the next Twin Cities Tableau user group, where we're going to have our resident Tableau visionary, Luke Stankey, run, I think, what is our 2nd annual Viz Games. I think we did it for the first time last year, and it was a hit, and so we decided to make it an annual thing. So the annual Viz Games, super fun. Make sure you attend that one. And then the Tableau conference, just getting this on your guys' radar. It is going to be May 9th through 11th in Las Vegas. The registration is not open yet. However, there's a save the date page, and you can plug your info in there and then get notified when the registration opens. But like pricing and like hotel info and all that stuff is not available as of yet. And does anybody else have any other events or announcements? It could be you're looking to fill a position on your team, or you are looking for work yourself. This is a safe space to just unmute yourself and holla. You do that, you think about that while I look at the chat and make sure I'm not missing something important. Okay. All right, if nobody has anything, then click my clicking abilities. Do we have any volunteers for our get to know a member, or shall I randomly pick on someone? The process is just unmute yourself and say something. Yes, is it Alicia?
Right. For me, I am looking for work. But okay, so anyway, going by the question. So my name's Alicia Hardy, and the company that I'm currently doing work for is my own company. It's an online store. I'm an online store manager. And so I research products and I do data analysis with the company and look for products to sell online. And so my role is manager and analyst, market researcher, you name it.
Yep.
And so the type of data that I'm analyzing is population health with Tableau. So I'm doing some calculations and visualizations and maps. Like when I do the North Carolina Department of Health and Human Services project, I show that the counties that have the highest diabetes, and I go into the hunger issue and sleep depravity. And let's see, how long have I used Tableau? I've only used Tableau maybe for less than 6 months. And let's see, what Tableau features or functions do you struggle with? Well, I'm new to it, so so I'll see, but I'm on a journey.
Awesome. That's a wide range of subjects you've got to cover there, Alicia. And what kind of work are you looking for? Just so people can connect the dots if you might be a good fit.
Oh, okay. So the type of work I'm looking for being a business owner for several years, I really do enjoy managing projects and deadlines, but I do look to use Tableau with it. I just did complete a certificate with a local community college here, Wake Technical Community College, called Data Analytics for Business Professionals. So I'm more of a business professional. I'm more of a business professional, and so I do enjoy working with the numbers of doing research and working with the finances.
Got it. And where are you physically, Alicia?
I am in Raleigh, North Carolina.
Okay. Nice. I would probably rather be there today.
Oh yes, it is a warm day. I mean, I have this on because I'm inside, but when you go outside, it's a warm day. You do not need for right now, for this time of day, you don't need a jacket, but tonight you will.
Yeah, it was -11 here this morning. So.
Ooh, wow.
Yeah, it's not a good time to come to Minnesota. Well, thank you, Alicia.
Thank you.
Welcome to our crew. We're happy you're here. And do we have one more volunteer?
This is Betsy Landon. I'll go.
Awesome.
Okay. So I'm here in New Hampshire. I work for Extreme Networks. We're a networking company. We're probably most well known for being the Wi-Fi network for most sports, not teams, but sports, types of sports like NFL, MLB, NASCAR, NHL. We've got a few soccer clubs in Europe, but wherever large organizations need networking. So my job is marketing business analyst. I'm measuring the ROI of marketing. My data sources are primarily Salesforce, and we have a Tableau server. I'm working with IT to convert my custom downloaded data from Salesforce into Incorda data sources. So Incorda extracts the data from Salesforce. And so I have to work with them. They won't let me use Incorda, so I work with them to extract the data and migrate my local data sources to Incorda so they can automatically refresh. I am the Tableau server site admin. So I'm not a server admin, I'm a site admin. So I provision all the marketing, anyone who wants to be or have access to the marketing site. We have nine sites on the server divided by department. And I'd say only 3, maybe 4 of those are actively used. I don't think HR or finance is actually using the Tableau server. But it's hard to tell because we're actually kind of disjointed. Everybody's so busy. We don't have a lot of time for internal community, and I wish we had more time for that. Let's see, what's my role? What type of data so I talked about the data that I analyze. So it's primarily from a marketing ROI perspective. So that includes in Salesforce opportunities against marketing data. And we also use an application installed in Salesforce called Marketo Measure. It was formerly called Visible, and it was acquired by Adobe. Adobe acquired Marketo, who acquired Visible at the same time. So if there are any other marketing business analysts out there, I would love to have more of a community amongst people like me who are trying to measure the ROI of marketing. It's pretty complicated. So I've been using Tableau since 2018. I still feel like I have a lot to learn. I took the certification course, which includes 2 test attempts. I can tell I missed it by maybe 1 or 2 questions, which is, it's really challenging taking that course because you don't know what you got wrong. And I don't know about the rest of you, but I learn from what I got wrong. And if I don't know what I got wrong, telling me to study everything isn't really helpful. So that's my feedback on that course. You feel pretty isolated too when you take it. You're on your own mostly. But I did learn a lot. So it was still valuable, but I'm disappointed that I missed the certification by just 1 or 2 questions.
Yeah.
Let's see, what am I good at in Tableau? Well, I'm really good at Tableau prep and manipulating data, I think. I feel actually it's easier to talk about the things that I think I need to learn more about, which is I'd like to leverage parameters more. I still get a little confused by fixed LODs. I understand them, but then I think I understand them, and then the data is wrong sometimes, and I can tell that it's wrong. And we do have a contract with Interworks for professional services because I don't have an internal mentor to go to or guru. I don't have a Zen master internally that I can go to when I am really stuck. And I've got the VP of marketing who's going to be presenting to the CEO on my data, and I'm stuck and I need help. So Interworks is my lifeline. And I highly recommend them if you're in a situation similar to me and you need help. We pay for that service and it's worth it. It's not, I don't think it's that expensive and it's really worth it. Features of functions you struggle with, well, yeah. So, and I was attending the other Tableau groups that was going on today, the Analytics January, which is awesome. If you don't attend that, it's really awesome. And I forget the French woman's name that leads it, but she's really good. And they were talking about sets today, and it's like I was thinking I should really learn to leverage that more. So even after 4 years, I feel like there's a lot I need to learn, and I learn something every time I attend any of these online groups. So that's why I'm here.
Awesome. Yeah, I got a couple comments. Someone else concurred with your Interworks recommendation, and Annabelle Rincon is the gal who leads that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
She's awesome.
There's so many fabulous resources.
Yeah, and every presenter, every time, they're always fantastic. So excellent.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yep. Thanks, Betsy. It was very nice to hear more about you, meet you. Okay. Well, let's get on with our show. So without further ado, I'm pretty sure that's my last slide. Yes, it is. I'm going to stop sharing and introduce Laura and have her virtually come on up here and tell us how we can all do a better job of proving the value our analytics teams provide to our organization. So welcome, Laura, and thank you so much for agreeing to do this for me.
Hi, everyone. Nice to virtually meet several of you. Appreciate the time. Just in terms of background, for those of you that don't know, I don't work in Tableau. I never have. So I'm sorry. I know it's like part of the secret handshake, but I recently, within the last 6 months or so, got involved with the Data Leadership Collaborative, which is part of the Tableau broader sort of community. And I think I was invited here just mainly, well, because maybe you need to fill the time, probably. And Serena's like, please. But we'd talk a little bit about, just proving the value of your functions. And please, like, throw stuff up on the chat, interrupt me, tell me I'm crazy, or just don't verbally abuse me, because that won't be fun. It'll remind me entirely too much of my corporate career. Okay. So let's prove some value, shall we? And I did lack a pithy subtext here. I'm supposed to put a little subtext there, but I'm telling you, I haven't slept in days, and so my ability to operate the brain to the mouth is just dwindling quickly. So I'm sorry if I seem a little off the deep end here. Okay, so here's stuff to cover. I got about 20 minutes. There's a lot to cover, so I'll probably talk really fast. That will also help my brain to stop, thinking between the mouth. We're going to talk about how to actually define value, and then this concept of like value versus return on investment, which I think a lot of us get conflated. We'll talk about kind of like 3 steps or 3 things to know today, and then of course there's one more thing. It's always just one more thing. Oh, I forgot. I got to get the chat up here. Okay, so defining value, because it's really important. Like I work a lot in data governance and just in data in general, right? I've been doing this stuff for over 20 years. I've never really worked on Tableau, but I know enough to be dangerous on a lot of different things. And one of the most important things we can do as a group is to be very precise about what we mean. So semantics and what we call things is really important. And when we talk about proving the value of our functions, and I'm talking broadly like your data teams, it's important to understand what you actually mean here. And I firmly believe that really when you think about value, it can only be defined by the recipient. So we can provide a lot of stuff, right? We can provide all kinds of analysis and dashboards and all these other things, but if it was of no value to them, then it's not going to help you, right? It's not going to help that person become your evangelist or cheerleader in the organization. I tell this story about I have several stories about Christmas gifts when I was growing up. But one year when I was like 16 years old, my parents gave me a lamp for Christmas. And it's easy to laugh about it now because it's funny, but then I was like a teenager and really angry. But they gave me a big giant lamp and it was ugly as sin. And that was my big Christmas present when I really wanted a Walkman. So that lamp, as you can imagine, had very little value to me. So I'm the recipient, right? I get to pick what value means to me. And one of the things I think as a data industry, we tend to forget is that part of our job is understanding what value means to our business stakeholders. Let's see here. Okay. So value versus return on investment. We all know how to calculate return on investment, right? We're all smart people. We know how to do data stuff. Sure, we all passed our math classes. But I do find that in a lot of organizations, we tend to conflate the two in terms of value and ROI, like, oh, you prove an ROI. And in the data landscape, I hear that question a lot. Well, how do you prove an ROI, whether it's with the data or any kind of work you do, building a data warehouse or any kind of a data repository or a data lake house or a data cabin or a data campus or a swamp or a reservoir or whatever the hell they're calling it these days. Trying to prove that ROI is very difficult. And we do tend to get those two things sort of conflated, value and ROI, but proving the value of your program really can often be done by connecting all of the things that you're providing in terms of value. But this is usually the advice you get when people say, well, how do you prove the ROI? Well, connect it to business value. But it doesn't always work that way, right? It's like, okay, well, there's this big project and the business really wants it, so we're going to provide that. But that may not actually equate to some kind of a return on investment. It may provide value that's tangible to your recipients, but it may not actually get you there in terms of return on investment. So data cesspool, data cabin does sound very Minnesotan. So I think that, sorry, that was the chat. Squirrel. So, I think we really want to be careful when we talk about the difference between providing value and providing a true return on investment. If you have to do a return on investment, one of the things I actually recommend is to talk to your finance folks and understand really well what they expect from a true return on investment, because it's not quite as easy as it seems, or maybe it doesn't seem easy. Maybe nobody ever thinks it's easy. Probably nobody ever thinks it's easy. Nothing's really easy. Okay, there we go. I'm doing good. Step one. So here's the 3 things, right? Know your numbers. So here's the fascinating thing, right? I've worked with a lot of analytic organizations over the years. I've run several of them myself. One of the fascinating things I find about running analytic organizations is we're not particularly good at knowing our own numbers. We're so busy helping other people with theirs that we kind of forget that at the end of the day, we're running a department and we need to run that department just like any other department runs itself. So it's critical that you understand, things like, what are the tools that you're responsible for? How much do they cost? What is the operating expenses of the team? Are you responsible for training? How much does that cost? Really, anything that costs money to the organization should be known by you. And that's that denominator. If you're being asked to do a return on investment, that's part of the denominator. And then you got to know your projects. Like, besides just in general, you should be keeping a running list of anything that you're supporting or anything that you've done. Consider like productivity studies to show the value and efficiency of your efforts. And how long on average does it take you to complete requests? How long does it actually take your team to get those things done? And how good are you at estimating those work efforts? And then finally, one of the pieces of advice I got several years ago, and continue to sort of spread the message, is keep anecdotal stories of what the team has done. So somebody comes to you and says, that dashboard was amazing. We use it every day. It has really helped us define X, Y, and Z, or change this behavior, or we've made this decision. But keep those anecdotal stories. They may not help you with a return on investment, but those things tend to play really well in a broader sense, right? They could be in a newsletter, they could be in a presentation, but it really does help you understand, help other people understand the kinds of things that your team can do. And like I said, if you're really having to be on the hook for a return on investment, the other thing you can do in terms of knowing your numbers is talk to somebody in your finance about what it means for your organization to actually do a return on investment, because there are different calculations for it and how, some organizations expect you to do that. All right, step 2. Organizational alignment. And this is probably the thing we really all expect when we talk about value. It's how well you deliver what is actually needed. And certainly, answering questions like how long it will take or how much it will cost is critical to long-term success. But every, influencer, thought leader, or rookie consultant will tell you that if you're not aligned with your organizational needs and know what they see is valuable, then really nothing else matters. Let's just have a moment for Metallica there. So it is really not the job of your business partners to tell you what matters to them. And this is, I have to, one of my pet peeves is the whole, they just don't understand, or one of my biggest, you want to irritate me is tell me that they don't, that they're not smart, right? But it's like, why would you expect that a business user, your stakeholder, or partner, it's their job to tell you, right? You should be out there all the time. You should be building those relationships. You should have that context. Some of the best ETL developers I know, and I know we don't call them that anymore, but some of the best data engineers that I've known over the years know the context of that data operationally or otherwise, as well as the analysts do. So I think helping your entire team have some operational understanding or context of the data means that you know the value better and better and better, because it is still defined by the recipient, but the closer you can get from that, then the better off you're going to be, right? So really step 2 is just keeping that organizational alignment. If your organization doesn't have great strategy documents, which, I mean, who does? Like, I love the strategies that are like, we want to be the best company for our customers. And, as a data person, you're like, what the hell am I going to do with that? Like, how do I deliver on that strategy? But literally, so many articles you read say stuff like that. Well, align to your organization's strategy. Great. So if you don't have something that's like the overarching strategy and then specific objectives or goals that you can actually align to, like, hey, they actually mean customer and they've defined it, and now I can go find the data and all those things, then you can, be more specific about what needs are needing to be met for that year. Or you can even go to some key departments and talk to them about what their specific needs are, rather than, trying to march to some really amorphous strategy, which is never really helpful. Okay, we good? Everybody with me? Everybody log off? Let me see, I haven't looked at the participants. No, well, a few people have, but that's okay. Nobody's drinking a lot. You are, I don't know. All right, step 3. If any of you have ever heard me talk about anything, at least related to data, you have probably heard me talk about the idea that if we're not communicating, we're not doing our job. So this should be a pretty predictable piece of advice from me. And this is the 3rd step. Value is seen and it's heard and it's felt, which all require a very heavy dose of consistent communication. And consistent is the key here. You will repeat yourself to the point where you really are tired of hearing your own voice. So much of what we do, particularly as leaders, as managers, as people that live and breathe, and like maybe data governance is a great example. Most of our job is about talking about the work, not actually doing the work. So, I think just consistently talking about the stuff is really important. The reality is you won't always be able to provide or just do awe-inspiring value, but you can deliver updates and information that ensures that your business partners know that you're working on the stuff that they really find valuable. So I really emphasize this whole idea of communication, and do it in lots of different ways. Go to the meetings, push out emails, have brown bag lunches, anything that you can do through multiple channels, and just keep doing more and better. All right, one more thing for you. So I will say that, if we all were like, if proving value was just simply doing good work, none of us would even be interested in this topic, because we're all probably doing pretty good work. But the reality is that that's not really where our problem is, right? I bet most of you would already be pretty successful with this if we just felt like it was about delivering content and delivering value. But time and time again, data teams tell me that no matter how hard they try, the business, whatever that looks like for you, just doesn't understand them. And I did a lot of research on trust when I wrote the book, Disrupting Data Governance. Shameless plug, please buy several copies. And the only thing I can tell you is that repairing it is actually exceedingly difficult. The research is kind of mind-boggling from that perspective. And tangled in the mess, right? And this is the quote I have up here, is tangled in the mess is often old stories of how projects went south and had nothing to do with you, right? Or decisions that impede your ability to make big changes, such as tech platform purchases, which so often, when we get those phone calls and we go into support, somebody's like, they push Tableau down our throat. I've heard that a lot. It's like, okay, but there's nothing we can do. So how do we move forward, right? And it's not just Tableau, it's any tool, it's like, oh, Power BI and Excel, and just fill in the tool, right? It's that lack of trust. It's that lack of relationship that's happened. And it just feels like there's this overall sense of that gap between the data team, the business team, and the tech team often is like this growing chasm. So in the ebook I wrote, which you can find on our website under our free stuff tab, there is an entire section in that book about how you rebuild trust in organizations when those things have fallen. So that's it, friends. That's all I got for you. The end.
Laura, do you have the slide that shows them where to go get that?
No, I didn't do that.
You took it out? Okay. Well, I'll put a link in the chat. Oh, wow, Joe is like on it.
Wow.
Thank
Joe, you're on it. Awesome. Thank you.
you. Okay, so did I forget to tell you guys that like Laura's kind of spicy?
Was that spicy? Didn't even realize. I'm sorry.
It's not spicy, but I guess that probably shouldn't. If for those of you that know me, that should not surprise you that I gravitated toward a human being like this. Let's let's take some questions. Are there questions? You can chat them. I'll read them out loud. You can unmute yourself and ask them yourself, whatever you're comfortable with. But Laura, I'm assuming you have a couple of minutes to hang around if there's any questions, right?
Sure. Yeah. If I was really spicy, there should be questions.
But WTF?
Right? Like, what the heck was she talking about?
And you made me think about something where, because as for people that have spent a significant amount of time on the consulting side of things, a lot of what you're talking about doing is almost a requirement as a consultant. Like if you're expecting your clients to pay your bill, like you have to have some documentation. You have to be communicating what you're doing.
Mhm.
Otherwise, it's like somebody's going to be like, why am I paying this bill? So not a shameless plug for people to become consultants, but if that's something you've ever been interested in, I encourage you to explore that, because it's just a different scenario. You go from having a salary, I mean, if you have a salary as a consultant too, but being an embedded part of a team, and just like, I don't know, for people, it's an opportunity to have kind of a safe hiding place.
Mm.
You've got more cover.
Yeah.
And when you're a consultant, you're out there. You have to document what you're doing and show that value and prove that.
Absolutely. Did you see that question that came
Yes,
in? Do you have any suggestions for folks who may not be in leadership roles about how to promote communication and relationship building? Yeah, I actually think you're going to be way better at it and better positioned than leaders a lot of the time. So I think there's always this concept of there was the parenthesis question there, which is especially if it's with folks higher up in the org. So like, I'm assuming that question is, how do I, as maybe like a individual contributor, report and communicate up to, a director, as an example. And I think that's a lot of your organization's culture. Like if they do that and it's a thing, and you have like skip meetings and, but I also think that when you're an individual contributor, your ability to create connection points across your organization with your peers, understanding them a little bit better, knowing what provides value for them, or knowing what solution would help them like remove some barriers for some of the stuff that they're doing, you're going to be in a really great spot to be able to understand that value and provide that communication. Because I do believe that it's like, it has to be a team effort. The one-offs really don't help, and frankly, a lot of leaders just are too disconnected from the actual work to do it well. So I think that just your day-to-day work and documenting some of that. When I've had teams, one of the things that I've really always done a lot of is I have asked them to show me in some capacity, the things that they provided value on. And like Serena was just talking about in terms of a consultant, you always have to do that. I want you to start thinking about that and just thinking about it in a completely different lexicon, right? It's a different way of thinking about the work that you provide to your organization. And then ask for, a meeting with one of your leaders and just show them like, this is the kind of things I'm doing that provide value to the organization. I think it helps you as an individual contributor feel like, gosh, I'm really kicking ass. And that feels nice, right? But then also it brings to the forefront, for your leadership, what you're doing and all that great work. I think that always is beneficial.
Good question, though.
Mm-hmm.
Other questions for Laura?
See, I wasn't that spicy.
I guess not.
I think I just talked fast and
All right. Well, if there are no more questions for Laura, we thank you so much for being here with us today. And
Thanks
if
for the invite.
you did not keep up with what Laura was saying, you can download a free copy of that ebook from our website. Link is in the comments. It's just moxieanalytics.com/free stuff. There's like 4 or 5 other ebooks out there on a variety of subjects if you'd like to know more about how we think about data related subjects. Okay. Thank you, Laura. You can hop on, stay on, hop off, whatever you need to do. I will TTYL.
Bye.
Bye. Okay, so from that to something completely different, right? That was, more strategic, non-technical. Now we're going to shift gears to something that is one of the most technical topics that I think you can cover in Tableau, or at least Tableau Desktop. So Luke, are you ready?
Always.
Take it away.
Great. Well, thanks for joining, everyone. Like Serena already prepped us for, I'm going to be discussing table calculations within Tableau. It can be a technical topic. I'm going to keep it really light. We'll keep it high level. My goals of this presentation are to, 1, introduce you to table calcs if you've never heard of them before and understand how they fit into Tableau. And then, of course, we will have a fun, just like live demo of trying to decode that. For those who have used Tableau for a number of years, it is always helpful just to get a deeper understanding of like how these table calculations work, because they can be frustrating. They still frustrate me today. And I'm hoping we can answer some questions along the way. And I will try to not be spicy. Maybe I'll be sweet, and this could be a sweet and spicy presentation.
I like it.
Yeah, and
Okay.
the downside of these virtual presentations, I never hear like even just like pity laughs. So I don't even know if these jokes land.
I'll unmute and give you some pity laughs.
All right. So the really compelling title of my presentation is Tabulations. Thank you, Serena. Right here.
Luke, did we lose you? Or is that just me?
I can't hear him either
Okay.
if he's talking.
I was like, either I'm having a problem or he's having a problem.
Hi.
Hi, welcome back.
I have no idea. I was like, I went into my presentation. Can you guys hear me?
We can hear you. Maybe, do you maybe want to turn off video and see if it's just a bandwidth issue?
I guess. Man, I
Yeah,
think I have high-speed internet, but let's try this again.
Okay, take it away.
Hello, everyone. Can you still hear me and see my screen?
Yes.
Cool. I'll just keep talking until you tell me otherwise.
Sounds good.
All right. Hi, my name is Luke Komiskey. I have been a longtime user of Tableau, discovered it in 2012, really revolutionized my career. Big part of starting that journey was just helping found the Twin Cities Tableau user group that still exists today. Thanks for attending. I run a company called Data Drive. We do a lot within the Tableau consulting space. So if you need support, please reach out. And then I also did a presentation like this for the Wisconsin user group. And so there's a lot of like Wisconsin references in here. But a fun fact, I was born in Wisconsin and in the great town of Tomah, Wisconsin. And the one fun fact about that is the only place in the world that I know of that you can sit in one subway and look at another subway. I would consider ourselves Wisconsin's truck stop. So fun fact for you today.
Nice.
So we are going to be talking about table calculations, but I think it's important just first of all to understand what is a table calculation versus everything else that is technically within Tableau. So Tableau allows you to have there's different kind of categories of calculations, which is just way to enrich your data. The ones that most people start with are those things like the if-then statements and the aggregate calculations like sum and average and min and max. Those are really like the basics for starting out within Tableau, and it allows you to just add additional essentially columns to your data set that might be business logic specific to what you're trying to do. On the flip side of that I won't go too deep into is what somebody already mentioned in the let's get to know each other, which is level of detail calcs. That could be its own presentation in itself, but at a high level, it allows you to really take control of the granularity of Tableau, as it is basically a kind of giant pivot table type logic. Level of details allow you to break out of that and control it differently. Lots of great material there. I won't even attempt to tackle it as part of our time together today. Smack dab in the middle, we've got table calculations. We're going to get super familiar with them today as we kind of first understand what they actually are. I will hopefully be able to screen share my Tableau desktop if that also didn't crash. And then we'll close out with just some general like order of operations and general considerations when designing these table calculations, because there is interesting nuance to understand about them. So double clicking into table calculations, the official summarized definition that I'll say is you are applying additional logic on data that has been filtered and aggregated to do additional math like rankings and running totals and percent of total. If you didn't understand what I just said, it's basically after all of your data gets into Tableau and you aggregate it, you got millions of records that you aggregate into a few things that are on your visualization. Table calculations are the thing that you will do math after that math happens, because you can't do things like rankings and running totals and percent of total unless you know the aggregated data that you're actually working with. Why people use it is because it provides quite a bit of flexibility for your end users. As you can imagine with things like percent of total and rankings, you want interactivity from your users to be able to change what is the population that I'm filtering by. And you want that math, of course, to only take place in Tableau after people have decided how they want to aggregate and how they want to filter. So table calculations are just one of those things, like you can't pre-calculate them in the database. Otherwise, I would highly recommend doing that because you need to know what data you're working with before you do this math after math. And you will see this a lot when we go through the demo, but there is a fun little triangle. So if you are searching around your Tableau workbook or you've inherited a mess from somebody else, if you have any of these green pills that show up in Tableau Desktop, it has a little lovely triangle at the end of it, the right side of it. That means that there is a table calculation in play. It's subtle, but important to know. And because I mentioned that I presented this information for the Wisconsin Tableau user group, naturally, as a Wisconsinite, now living in Minnesota, I had to use different types of cheese as my example sample data set. So I'm going to run through a few quick slides before we jump into Tableau Desktop, just to make sure we understand the concept of what table calculations are actually doing underneath the hood. This is a very simple data set of 2/4 of cheese selling data, 6 rows of information. And what a table calculation really allows you to do is, like I've mentioned, percent of total. So we can have Tableau go in, visualize this information or put it in a table. And then because things like percent of total aren't pre-calculated in the data set, we can do a percent of total for each row of information. This one is fairly straightforward. Now, the reason why table calculations are so important is because, like, if as a user I decided that I did not care about cheddar cheese, which I don't in real life, but if you exclude cheddar cheese, then a table calculation within Tableau allows you to like adjust that math on the fly, because it's math after the data gets filtered out and aggregated. So the difference between the previous slide and the new slide we're looking at is that without cheddar cheese, now I can recalculate what percent of total for my data in my view is. That's the flexibility of table calculations at the most simple level. And then one thing I won't even like try to talk too deep into, but I think it's important to understand is that table calculations can be really powerful because you can actually stack a lot of this logic. And so like a very common thing that I run into when we're doing just like general consulting is that like people might want to understand like percent change in market share year over year. And so for market share, you need to understand like how much you sold within that particular industry. And then year over year, you need to understand how did my sales of last year percentage change from this year percentage to figure out percent of change in market share year over year. Table calculations allow you to basically stack these things on top of each other to do some of this more complicated math. But it's really cool, but outside of like what I'm trying to teach you guys as part of just like this quick demo today. So with that, I'm going to get into just actually presenting Tableau Desktop, as long as it didn't crash with Zoom. Serena or somebody, can you give me just a mic check to make sure I'm still not talking to nobody?
You're good.
Okay, cool. Well, I didn't waste 10 minutes there. That's good.
Nope.
All right, we're moving over to Tableau Desktop now. I've attempted to really bring up the font size so we can hopefully read this on a screen. But for starters, we're going to look at just percent of total, pretty simple one. I'm going to be using the Superstore data set. All of these will have my dimensions like category on the left, and then just for your own sanity.
Excuse me, can you make this bigger?
Oh man, I tried.
Just do like entire view. Entire view.
I wish I could. I have one of those like big monitors that would.
Or fit, like no, in the like go from standard to like fit width or something in Tableau.
Maybe.
Try that.
Does that help?
It's huge. Is that better?
Yes, that helps better.
Okay.
Okay. Unfortunately, it's going to get a lot more complicated after this, so I would try my best. This is the simplest view I've got. So we've got category, and then all of these as reference point, I've got sales. So this is just like the sum of sales, just for reference. So for table calculations, there's a lot of ways to create them. But when you bring on something like a continuous measure, a green pill that is aggregated in some way, a way that I can tell that is a table calculation is because it's got that triangle on the right side of it. If you can squint and see that. When I right click, do you guys see this submenu, or does that not show?
We can see it.
Okay, cool. Sometimes when I screen share, it doesn't show that.
Yep.
So for table calculations, when you have this, at the bottom half of all of these context menus, you'll see a lot of different options like compute using, edit table calculation, clear the table calculation. So you just go back to visualizing the sum of sales. And then for what I would recommend for a lot of people just getting into table calculations is that you can use something called quick table calculations. These are just really easy to get started ways to start doing simple things like running total, percent of total. I mean, honestly, this is going to get you exactly what you need 80% of the time. What I'm going to be focused on for us today is just helping you understand at a level deeper how these things work. So everyone has nuanced use cases that they might want to do something a little bit more sophisticated than like a basic percent of total. But for this view to start out with, I've got a quick table calculation percent of total, and I can tell it's a table calculation. This is what allows me to visualize percentages here of percent of total across the entire categories. What I mean about math after math is that there's thousands of rows beneath this for Superstore data set. It is only going to do percent of total after it aggregates up for each specific category. So let's take it a level deeper. I'm going to see if I can do this. If it helps. So now we're going to get into like percent of total by category. And so by category, it gets a little bit more complicated because I don't want this whole page to add up to 100%. I actually want this whole page because I've got four different regions, or sorry, four different categories, because it's by category. I've got four that there's going to be essentially kind of like 300% that's added up here, because I've got 3 categories of furniture, office supplies, and technology that all of these are going to individually add up to 100%. You can see I've like highlighted in green, the darker green here, that like all 4 of these numbers are adding up to 100%. What's different about this is that when I go into this edit table calculation, and these dialog boxes I'm sure are going to keep getting smaller and smaller. Within these table calculations, the most important takeaway I want people to understand from this presentation on table calcs is that within here, you can start to really break down how these calculations actually work. Because I've got at the top, you've got a lot of different options that are from the quick table calculations of things like percent of total. But then where people usually end up with is that they're using these compute using, where there's table across, table down, table panel down. And so as you click through there, Tableau is going to like show you different options of how it is actually changing the direction of it. And when I say direction, it just means at what level do you want me to calculate percent of total? Because when I do something like table down, it is going to look at everything on my way down this table and add up to exactly 100%. If I add up all of these percentages, it's going to add up to 100%. Where I might want to do something different, like my previous view, where I only want to do percent of total within the categories. And so the ways that you can really start to get a deeper understanding of how these table calculations work, because they can be really flexible, is that you can take advantage of specific dimensions down here. And specific dimensions is where you can now have access to a checkbox that's going to have all of your dimensions on there, all the ways that you can really like slice and partition and address your data. And this is where you can kind of play around with at what level do you want to do percent of total? Because if I do it by unchecking category, then I can get exactly what I had at the beginning, which is figuring out the percent of total across the regions for each category. And I can also flip that to do the percent of total for each category across each region. So because I've got 4 region, this adds up to 400% down the table. If I do it for each category, it adds up to 300% because I've got 3 different categories. And the reasons why it's important to understand this is just because there are times when you're building visualizations that you want to have access to these types of table calculations like percent of total, running sum. But once you start to get a mastery of this idea of partitioning and addressing, or really just this concept of checkboxes, then you can, my goal is to stop people from rage clicking through all of these different options until you think you get the right answer. And instead be comfortable coming down to specific dimensions and really being able to describe in English what you're trying to accomplish. So if you're still with me, I'm going to try to go one level deeper just to try to get this point across about partitioning and addressing.
Luke, should we ask if there's any questions at this point?
Please.
Does anybody have any questions for Luke? Recover something. For me, like, I actually think that these are harder than fixed LO or than level of detail calculations. But
You said easier or harder?
I feel like for me, table calculations are harder than LODs. That's just my brain. And it wasn't until I had a good understanding of how LODs worked that table calculations started to make more sense. Because you really are like you're setting the level of aggregation, how those aggregations like are arranged, and when to restart, right? When to restart counting. So
Yep.
I don't know, it's just me and my weird brain.
No, I totally get it.
Okay, we do have one question.
Awesome.
Newbie question. Why, generally speaking, would I do the calculation in the table rather than in the raw data file? Do you want to take that one?
Yeah, great question. So in general, like as a good Tableau consultant, I will always say do all of the work in the database or the direct raw data as possible. The unique thing about table calculations is that it's meant to tackle functionality that you couldn't pre-calculate in your data set. So for example, you don't know if your users are going to be looking at all of the regions or excluding certain products. And so things like percent of total, you can't actually pre-calculate in your database, because as soon as people start removing elements, it's going to change the sum of sales and therefore change their percent of total. And so the unique thing about why table calculations like exist to begin with is that it's math that has to take place in Tableau, because you are offering self-service, you're offering ad hoc analytics that is going to be able to like recalculate based off what people are looking at. That's the power of them.
Yeah, and they talk about table calcs and the settings in the table calculation settings, or like table across and table down. But if you think about really, it's like it's the data in your view, It's the data that you're looking at. It's the data that gets rendered, and whether you actually look at that in a more traditional grid format or a table or a bar chart like we're seeing here, it's the same thing. It's applying all those calculations based on the data that you have in that particular view. All right, Allison has a long question. Is there a hack to switch table calculations from rows to columns? Many times I do a proof of concept in a table, a true data table, to validate the actual calculations. Yes, good. That is a good practice, Allison.
Very good.
And then start to build the charts and graphs based on those. Many times when I do nested table calculations, then try to create a line chart or a bar chart, the table calculation breaks. I'm figuring it is because I'm being lazy doing calculate across or down instead of based on specific dimensions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
I
mean,
wouldn't say lazy, but
Yeah. No, in short, I also subscribe to lazy. But the short answer is yes, it is probably because, let me put it this way. I would highly recommend with table calculations, I always start with just like a table-based view or a simple like bar chart like this. And yes, the benefit is that you understand that you're using table down and table across. What I would recommend is before you try building that line chart, come into edit table calculations and look at what is unchecked and checked. And then specifically what is checked and in what order. Like take a screenshot of this so that when you rebuild your line chart that you can go down to specific dimensions and make it look exactly like the calculation that was working. Because at the end of the day, like all of this stuff that's pane down and cell and table, all it's doing is just checking and unchecking and reordering what your answer key down here. And so if you get it working on this view, just once you build your new fancy line chart, click on specific dimensions and make it look exactly like your answer key.
awesome.
Yeah,
Good.
that is a certified way to remain lazy.
All right, cool. Let's keep going.
Yeah. So to like bring it all home, I'm going to go into this edit table calculation, which is going to get like even further down the point of when I've got a running total, so a running sum of sales. This time around, I've got 3 dimensions in my view: region, category, shipping method. And this is like an example of like where you really need to start understanding this concept of addressing and partitioning. In the old Tableau versions, there actually used to be a section called like addressing and partitioning, but now it is like both simplified and confusing because all it is now is just a list of checkboxes. But the main thing is if you really want to start understanding table calculations is that if you understand this box right here, the key takeaway is that this concept of partitioning, or when do I want my table calculation to restart, is you uncheck the things that you want it to restart on. So for example, I have got a running sum where I've partitioned by category. This means that every time I finish with a one category, I restart. So you can kind of see my orange bars go up, and then it flips back to my light blue bars, and it continues to go up. But then because I've got partitioned by category, when I get to my new category of office supplies, I am back starting at 0. So that's the concept of partitioning. The other concept is the concept of addressing, which just means in what order do I want to do the running sum? And I don't know like really why, but it's always like the backwards version of how these checkboxes are organized. So unchecking boxes, it doesn't matter like where it locates in this list of things, but these checkboxes, order matters. And because I've got region at the bottom here, it means it's going to start for each region. And then it's going to go up to my next checkbox, which is ship mode, and do here. And so if you've like followed me along this far, and this is the farthest down the rabbit hole we'll go during our short time together. If I put my checked boxes in a different order, the answer is going to be slightly different, because now ship mode is going to be looked at first, which means I'm going to be looking at this orange bar, and I'm going to be moving to this light blue bar. And then I'm going to go down to this next category, or the same category, but down here, and go by shipping method, and then by region. So that's why it's like orange, light blue, orange, light blue, orange, light blue, orange, light blue, until I get the answer down here. If I switch it the other way, like I originally had it, it goes orange, 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 light blue, light blue, light blue, light blue. Both get you the answer, but in different ways for running some. How many people do we still have on the webinar listening to this? And are there any questions before I go back to my slides?
We're still at 47.
Okay, cool.
Yep. Questions?
I've gone too far down the rabbit hole.
There's one. What is the add secondary calc checkbox?
Yeah, like I talked about with stacking table calcs, this is where the fun really begins. Is you get to start tackling and stacking your table calcs by clicking on add secondary calculations. Allows you to do like another table calc on top of this table calc. So I can do like a running sum difference from calculation, or in
Math after math after math.
Yeah, in the example I had was like a very common one is year over year percent change of market share. That's like the most like common business ask I get from clients. It's like, how much did my market share change versus prior years? And to get that, you need to both understand market share, which is percent of total. And then you need to understand percent change, which is another table calc.
Good example.
Yeah, so you can keep stacking and go crazy with this stuff. For me, that last checkbox of like show calculation assistance, while I appreciate Tableau put it in there, I don't know if it actually like resonates with me. Like, I don't know if it actually helps me understand these better.
Yeah. John says he's leaving the call, but not because it's not an awesome presentation. Thanks for the caveat, John.
Yeah, thank you. I want to take it personally.
We've got a fan of the table calc assistant.
Yeah. Okay, all right. Well, let me take it back to my presentation. We'll get back to like a hopefully like non-technical, but like my final just like thoughts. If you really dig this stuff and you're like, man, I really want to like take this a level deeper or try to like reinforce this concept. One thing that was super helpful for me is Andy Kriebel, bizwiz.com, has a great just like kind of OG blog post about decoding table calculations. I don't know if all the screenshots are necessarily updated, but it does go into a much deeper or it like reinforces what I just talked about with addressing and partitioning, and just how to basically read these table calculations out loud instead of, like I mentioned at the beginning, rage clicking through all the settings until you hope you find the right answer. And then the last ones I'll just close with, without going too much detail. The main thing is you need to understand that for table calculations to work, like I mentioned at the beginning, this is math after everything is aggregated and filtered. So when you're thinking about performance considerations, is one, table calculations have to be like computed in like Tableau. So you're not necessarily getting the power of like the database. If you've got a high performing database, like this has to happen in like the application or Tableau server. And then the second piece is because everything table calculation related is is like math after all the other math is done. That means that if you're ever using table calculations as filters, they're one of the last things to happen, because you can't filter stuff until you know the answer, and table calculations don't know the answer until every other filter has hit. So just be aware that table calculations, there are performance considerations you need to think about if you're doing math over the top of a lot of data, and they're one of the last filters to hit within Tableau, which if you're building super clever visualizations can be to your advantage if you understand how they work. And if you think these look really legit and want to learn more, I wrote a blog some time ago about them. Check it out. And I will take it to Q&A if I have any time left. I don't know if I have time left.
What time is it? Yeah, we're good.
Okay.
If anybody has burning questions, now's the time. Thank you, Luke. That was good info. A good overview.
Thank you. Thanks for joining me on that technical adventure.
Good.
Can you put that particular link in the chat for
Absolutely.
your, okay, thank you.
Yep. I'm actually going to stop sharing so I can just do it now.
Mm-hmm. Do it now, or you will forget. Okay, well, let's if nobody has any questions right off the top of their head, keep thinking about it. Keep working on that courage to ask them or type them. Norbert has a question. Why would you not always make dimension filters context? Why would you not always do that? Well, I'll take a stab at that, and you guys can fill in the gaps. But I would say you don't even, so unless you have level of detail calculations, unless you're using level of detail calculations in your viz, there aren't a lot of reasons why you would do that. I mean, it certainly isn't going to hurt anything, but the context filters, the option to do that is really there to supersede the natural order of operations that Tableau inputs. Luke had that slide up that kind of talked a little bit about that. So the context filter option is a way to override that, but if you're not using level of detail filters, then I don't think you need them.
Yes, I would second that. Context filters used to have a much more interesting utility, but nowadays, what Serena said is correct. If you're building level of detail calcs, specifically fixed level of detail calcs, that is where like context filters, you can see like a context filter versus a dimension filter. What's wedged in between that? It's this stuff. So if you're working with like, sets and top end filters and fixed level of detail calcs, like those are the three reasons why you might want to Serena's point, have your dimension filter supersede that and start filtering out the data before it gets into all of this goodness.
I don't know, maybe if you're just not sure whether there are those kinds of calculations involved. I don't know if it matters for performance, like if you just do it when it's unnecessary or not. So
yep. Yeah, they used to have a lot more like performance considerations, but not anymore.
All right. Hopefully that answers your question, Norbert. So with the time that we have left, we'll open it up to best thing I learned, group therapy. So now's the chance to share any golden nuggets of learning and knowledge that you might have picked up over the last month or since you last joined this group. Or alternatively, if you would like to help, let us try to collectively solve an issue or something that you've been struggling with, feel free to just, obviously you probably can't, share your screen and like show us private data or anything like that. But even if you're just able to speak to the problem, we have a fairly decent track record of at least providing some potentially viable solutions for people to try. So give us what you got. Throw us your hardest problems, or give us your best tips. Oh, Tableau pie chart. What's the fastest way to build that? Thanks. It always takes me so long. Gosh, my memory of what's in the show me tab is fading. Is there a pie chart in there?
In the Show Me tab, yes, it is a pie chart.
That's what I thought. There isn't a donut chart in there. That one's a little bit, just a
No, there
tiny,
isn't.
tiny bit. There's a like a couple of extra steps to build it.
Yeah, it's a little bit tricky to build a donut.
But the pie chart is actually just it's in the Show Me section. I don't know, Luke, if you still have Tableau up. I don't. You want to maybe just quick show where that is in the pie chart?
Yeah. Give me 1 second here. Right. Table calculation.
Just when you thought you were done.
All right. Yeah. You guys see the screen all right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yes, in the upper right-hand corner, you have easy access to a pie chart, and I don't make them often, but if I do, I usually like using this pie chart button is probably the fastest way to get there, because they are a bit more tricky to drag and drop your way to them. What I'd recommend to like get that option activated for you is to find, like the instructions say down below, highlight at least one dimension and one measure, like this, and then you've got instant access to a beautiful pie chart. Full size.
Hopefully that helps.
Oh, that's awesome. I usually just drag and drop. I don't use pie charts, but someone suddenly asks you, and you always forget it. Thank you.
Yep.
Yeah, they are a bit tricky just because of this angle. Angle one is like you don't use it that often unless you're doing circle stuff.
Yeah, donut charts, they're a pain. I have to open tutorial videos on the other window and just follow step by step. Yeah, I get the video.
Yeah, once you get the donut chart, I probably had to watch that video like 7 times before I was like, okay, I think this is committed to memory now. But yes, they can be. The donut charts are like, it doesn't at face value, you're just like, this doesn't make any sense, but it can be done fairly quickly. It's essentially just 2 visuals on top of each other, one that has your dimensions and your measures, and the other one is just a white circle. Okay, let's see. Can anyone please drop links to Tableau public dashboards, or oh shoot, I lost my chat box. Where did it go? Chat box just got all small. Okay, so Tableau public dashboards are blog posts that are using the model functions in Tableau. We have historically done some forecast modeling using regression analysis in Excel and Access, and I'm trying to pull the modeling into Tableau because our data is updated more frequently, and I want to be able to have one tool to do multiple models. I'm gonna have to bow out of answering this question. I have not worked with that. So, and when you say model, Allison, are you talking about like, are you talking about, when you connect to a data source, like how you're joining the different data, data subjects together? Is that what you mean? Or are you talking about something else?
I'm assuming it's part of the analytics extension model.
Yes. Okay. Yep. Okay. Well, who can help answer this for Allison? Because
however, I think there is a Python integration where you can further your analysis with several models. You can integrate within Tableau. I don't know if anyone can relate that.
Yeah. Yeah, I was gonna say, like, often I if we're gonna do like modeling, I try to do it outside of Tableau unless you've got a use case for like having users update on the fly, which maybe it sounds like that's exactly what you have.
Yeah, and actually you can integrate it within Tableau, and also R.
Right. Yeah, there you go, Katrina.
Tableau Tim. For the win. It looks like Betsy has a little tip for us. She shared her favorite formatting for percent change. So if you guys haven't figured out like how to do those cutesy little percent changes with the, you know, the visuals, the pluses and minuses and little arrows, you can do that in custom formatting. And she's pasted here her favorite format. That is one that I have also used. Very nice and clean. Thanks, Betsy. Betsy also asked, do you know if you can apply a color to the arrows? Well, yes, it depends on how you're doing it. So if you're just pasting just text versus using shapes, so you like using an actual shape from your shape library, then you can apply a color to it. Let's see. See if I can find a quick little tutorial on how to do that. What other questions do people have while I'm looking this up? Unless somebody
just to put a bow on what that last question was / what Katrina just wrote is yes, like you to have access to change to more than one color within Tableau, you would have to have 2 separate calculations so that you have 2 options to format them differently. They wouldn't show up at the same time if they have like you know, kind of mutually exclusive logic to it. So like the up arrow, the down arrow shouldn't show up at the same time if you do your math right.
Yeah, I know there's some pretty sweet blog posts and potentially some videos on that very subject. So yes, short answer is yes, it can be done.
And Michael, to your question, ChatGPT can do everything, but use at your own discretion.
I just saw that Microsoft was already putting stuff like in Excel that like automatically does like analysis for you. So I just didn't know.
Yeah. I don't think it's integrated in Tableau by any means, but you can maybe answer some quick questions using it.
What a crazy world we live in. It looks like Katrina did find a blog post from PH Data on using custom shapes in Tableau. Let's see here if they're giving that exact example. Yep, essentially they are using that exact example. So thank you, Katrina. You're always on point with that kind of stuff. I struggle to multitask. All right. Well, we're just about at time and my computer is going to die. So let's wrap it up. Thank you guys for attending and participating and engaging. It's always fun to hang out with you, even virtually. So go get yourselves a glass of whatever you prefer, and we shall cheers each other in spirit until we get together virtually again in February for a Viz game. So go sign up for that event. The registration is already open. All right. Have a super rest of your day and a fabulous month, everyone.
Thanks for emceeing, Serena.
You bet.